welcome to the Walnut Desk podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Will.
And today we have a special guest, Wendy Ratner.
Hi.
And she is here to help us talk about dressing. Why are you uniquely qualified to talk about dressing, and tell us a little bit about yourself, Wendy?
Well, I get dressed every day. Every day. So,
Congratulations.
those are all my qualifications. There you have it.
So it's a broad topic. Obviously, we're going to start off with the definition of dressing. The definition of dressing is the act of a person or thing that dresses, a sauce for food, stuffing for a fowl, or material used to dress or cover a wound. So
that's a lot. And we're going to start off with like a very basic question, which is, how do we make decisions about how to put on clothes every day? So what do you do?
You got to look at the weather report. That's the number one. That's the first step. Otherwise, you don't know what you're stepping into. Then you decide long pants, short pants. When's the last time I wore this pair of pants, this shirt? And you rotate. That's a large part of my decision-making process. And then you think about how your items will go together.
Okay, so that's a question.
You're blowing my mind right now.
do you
I literally, the last time I looked at the weather report before I got dressed was like never.
Really?
How does that work out for you?
Oh, I do it all the time.
Well, I live in California, so I think I just get lucky. I just wear pants every day, and then I decide if I want to wear short sleeves or long sleeves based on a whim.
And it's summer, so you like hope that that's not the one day in summer that it's going to rain.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, shoes, man. Men don't wear rain boots, do they?
Rain boots.
I have rain boots.
You do? Okay.
Like those, what are they called? Like the ones with the
Galoshes?
plastic toes? Like the duck boots or something?
The LL Bean boots?
LL Bean style ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got those. Those are pretty good, but I haven't had to use them in a while.
Ryan, do you look at the weather report?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
If I'm going somewhere where I'm going to be outside for a long period of time, I usually do. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but so deciding what clothes go together, my style of dress is dictated on what smells the least dirty a lot of the time, unless I'm going to like somewhere where I need to be presentable. But like, how do we decide what goes together?
Well, it really is dependent on what you want to be presenting, I guess. So when I, just everyday dress, when I'm deciding what to wear together, if you're thinking about colors, so like a really, really simple example might be like, okay, I'm wearing my dark blue denim jeans today, so I'm probably not going to wear my dark blue shirt with it, because I personally don't think I can rock the monochrome look. So
is that a look though?
That is a look, yes. And if you do it right, it can be very nice. But it's kind of like what you feel comfortable with. That's a lot of the decision-making process. So what goes with what is really, I think, it's very subjective. But there's the, basics, like a lot of the decision-making process is like when you're shopping, because that's the time you're making those decisions. Like you're thinking about what you already own, like what your style is, what it could go with. That's how I think about it. It's kind of like not just when you're waking up, but also like when you're gathering your whole collection, your whole closet to pick from.
Yeah.
When you're waking up every day and getting dressed, it's in a sense it's styling, but it's not. You already have a sense of what your personal look is, so I don't really think it's like a lot of effort. I don't think, I don't put much time into it every day.
Yeah.
But it's what you're comfortable visually putting out there.
Right. I'm kind of interested in like what subconsciously has dictated my personal dress style, because basically I've fallen back on like black pants and like whatever shirt and sneakers, and that's like as far as my engagement in my decision-making process.
I have a super similar experience where I don't put much energy into it. It all seems to be subconscious. The styling portion of like going to the store, I will always sit there and think to myself like, okay, I have a bunch of stuff that already looks like this, or I go back and I look into the shopping bag in the rare occasion that I go shopping and just everything's blue.
Yeah, I have
and
a blue
I
problem
apparently
too.
only buy blue clothes.
Why is that? Why do you think we only buy blue clothes? Because like most of my shirts are blue.
You like that color, that's why.
Okay.
If you liked red, I think you buy more red. I like gray clothing. I have a lot of gray shirts. It's a problem.
Okay.
But it's kind of you don't know you're doing it. I guess is like that's, and even if there isn't much, I have black pants and a basic shirt, like that's still your style, even if there isn't much thought behind it.
So is it socially instinctual, or do you think it's like evolutionarily instinctual?
Like, how do you mean? Like socially, like we learn patterns by dressing the way we see people who we admire in some way, and then we try to dress like them, or like. What's the
like that, or
side.
like I mean, it seems like it's like a kind of like social memes dictate the way that we subconsciously choose our clothing, because I would think there's no evolutionary benefit to like choosing a blue shirt over a black shirt. Maybe there is, but like our ancestors didn't dress.
No, continue. No, continue, because I want to.
This is like a thought in the process. So what do you have to say?
Yeah. No, I mean, there is evolutionary basis behind getting, how we present ourselves and clothing itself, and even the color choices. Red is a power color. So even if, we're not making that active decision, that's how you're receiving somebody that is wearing red.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so it's a communication method, too. So you're not just dressing the way you want to see yourself in the mirror, you're dressing the way you want other people to perceive you, and you're choosing specific colors and styles because you think it's going to make a positive, negative, or power, or, non-power impression.
Wow, there's so much more to this than I've ever consciously thought about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about the idea of, so clothing, talking about an evolutionary basis. I did some research. So basically, it was about, the estimate for when humans first wore clothing was about 170,000 years ago, and it was about 180,000 years ago that the Ice Age happened. So more or less, there's some correlation that indicates that the need for, pants and shirts and, what was then pants and shirts were necessary to keep us warm so we wouldn't die. And that's kind of what the difference they say between humans that survived and why Neanderthals didn't during cold snaps about 35 to 40,000 years ago was like precision tailoring, because, we were able to create garments that kept in our body heat. So there's this functional purpose, this utility to clothing, obviously. But, you think of adornments kind of in conjunction with clothing like, face paint. You could think of how different tribes might wear different body jewelry or, various, whatever they have, I don't know, adornments to like represent who they are, maybe even like what they trade, what types of like cattle they sell. Like all around the world, there's like different ways to like show and communicate something. So there's
what your religious affiliations are.
Yeah, so it's a communication tool just as much as like. For me, it's hard to separate all of those things when I'm looking at communication tools.
Yeah, totally. So, like, there's the utilitarian side of, like, Under Armour is the end game. And then there's, like, the adornment side, which is, like, accessories. What watch do you wear? Why did I choose the silver wedding ring?
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and it's also sort of like tribal in that sense, right? Like you can align yourself with a particular subset of culture by, having certain adornments or wearing the uniform, if you will, like whether it's a formal uniform for like work or for school or something like that, but also kind of like you're opting into a certain line of thought and identifying yourself in that way.
Or like trying to join a specific social tribe. Like I want to take a moment and we should each say a time when we saw somebody who we were like, shit, I want to be more like that, or like I want to belong there, or I want to fit there.
I'll say that it's not.
And then you chose to buy a certain type of clothing after that.
I'll say what it's not. I'll say it's not wearing green on St. Patrick's Day.
Definitely not.
Actively don't do that.
That's the anti-answer to this question.
We should wear red on St. Patrick's Day. That's the power move.
Official stance.
Yes, it is.
Podcast.
All right, but so who, like name a time when your fashion choices changed because of another person. And I haven't thought of one for myself.
No, but nor have I.
Wow. I haven't. I guess I didn't realize how much clothing has been a major part of my life. So when I was younger, in like middle school, early high school, I wanted to be like I wanted to identify with like the punk crowd and like not be girly or feminine or whatever. So I would purposely shop in the boys section. I just didn't want to be like associated. This is like, I guess, the opposite of like you saw somebody and then you decided to be like them. I decided to be the opposite, but it was a subculture that I identified with, that I decided I'm going to be part of it. And so like, I just remember I had a lot of very, boxy shirts. I had a lot of SpongeBob SquarePants shirts because I just didn't care.
Nice.
And I started wearing a lot of plaid, like I had plaid skirts. That's like the punk thing, right? When you're a lady. And I remember, and people, but the thing is it worked because people, I remember my freshman year of high school, they were like, some punk kid. He wasn't a punk. I just mean punk in attitude because I didn't like him. Yeah. He was like, so what are you like, a punk rocker now? Like, what are you doing wearing that skirt? And I was like, I don't know. I just like it. But like inside I knew that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Like it was an interesting experience.
So it worked. The communication tool got the result it was supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mine was definitely like around a similar time in life, which I feel like is when you start to latch on to different sorts of garb to try to fit in ways that you kind of, your thought patterns make you feel, right?
Yeah.
So I definitely latched onto when I started skateboarding in like 6th grade. So that was when I really started to identify with skate culture and specifically the like pro model shoe. So like not as crazy as, the Jordan's craze that's happening right now or like sneakerhead status, but I always wanted to have like a decent, cool looking new pair of skate shoes.
Yeah.
Which are expensive. They were like $80 or $90 a pair. And when you're skating and you're not very good at it, you thrash those shoes
so fast.
Like a week because you're scraping them against basically high grit sandpaper on the grip tape of a skateboard. So, but I can remember carrying around the monthly CCS catalog, which can get mailed to your house, and just like flipping through all the shoes and being like, oh yeah, that one with like the little orange stripe on it. Like I want those.
Specifically about shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have like the same time period. So it was like right after, there was like in all of the press right after Kid A came out, which was like 2000, right? I was obsessed with that album. I was pretty young, and I saw this, like, there was some interview in a major magazine that I read in an airport with like pictures of Radiohead, and they were like not cool looking. Like they were in like button-up shirts with sleeves rolled up, and they had like Tom York had like a calculator watch, and like it was tucked in and stuff, and it was like bedraggled, like messy version of corporate dress. And I was like, yeah, that's cool because it's like nerdy, and like none of the cool people wear these clothes. And I guess it was a similar thing. It was both like I wanted to be of this thing, but I also wanted, in being of it, I wanted to be against all of the very like cool attire that was going on in that time period.
It was like they picked the lamest thing from every different cross section of dress. Like of the geek style, what's the geekiest thing you can wear? It's the calculator watch. So let's pick that one thing. Yeah. And like of the businessman, what's the component we're gonna get? And it's like this hodgepodge of the 2000s.
And I loved it. I like ate it up. I was like, yeah, that's my style. And honestly, it like really hasn't changed that much since then.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, so.
Well, before that, it was bad. It was like Jinko jeans and like big T-shirts that say corn on them. It was not good.
So, after our adolescents becoming teenagers, there hasn't been like a person or something that you identify with that
I totally
as an adult now.
And like the professional space, like business casual, like I'm a teacher, so I don't have to dress like up. I don't have to do business casual, but like, it's got to be like professional casual kind of thing. But I remember when I moved to California and first started going to meetings for my jobs, that was like the time of the skinny tie, where like places stopped selling regular size ties and they downsized. And I think they're widening again, but there was a portion of time where you had to buy like the skinniest, they're like 2 inches wide ties. But I saw a dude who was wearing a tie clip, which I had never seen before. And I was like, that is a cool accessory. It kind of classes up this little look to be a little bit more fancy, but it's also It's kind of low key depending on what like color you get.
Yeah,
so I got this like matte silver tie clip, and I was like super proud of that move.
Takes like a formal element and throws it into like a business casual situation, and it makes it slightly different.
Yeah, it's an accessory that is refining your look.
Also extremely practical, because when you're leaning over a desk to like work on a paper, it keeps your tie to your chest, so you don't have a dangling tie on top of what you're leaning over.
Right.
Which is really helpful. It keeps your clothes out of your way, which I think might be a problem more for traditional women's dress.
Yeah, like my necklaces.
And men's.
They always get in the way. Always.
You need a necklace clip.
Necklace clip.
No, they haven't made those. Yeah.
So, like, the other thing is, like, trends. Because, like, there are types of shirts that I wear right now that I wouldn't have worn. Like that, what's the name of it? It's, like, not jean shirt, but it's, like...
Chambray?
It's, like, a lighter jeanish... Yeah, it's that material. And I wear those shirts, and I never would have worn them, like, 5 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, like, me accidentally jumping on a trend.
It calls to mind that photo of Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears wearing the full denim suits at some awards show.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's a nightmare image.
Yeah, see, monochrome does not work for everything or everybody.
especially when it's jean, right? Like blue jean, head to toe.
That's
hard.
just no. Like, that's a judgment, but on my part, but that's a no. Like forever.
Yeah.
Probably.
We're looking at the image now over here on this side of the Walnut desk, and it doesn't look good.
It's emblazoned. I don't need to look it up.
That hat, though.
That hair.
So yeah, another thing I want to talk about and like throw into this is like I see a lot, I go on Twitter and I see a lot of people complaining about how other people dress, which like is like immediately offensive to me a little bit, because you should be able to dress however you want. But people like really shit on other people for like, I don't know, people don't like it when dudes wear shorts. People don't like it when dudes wear cargo shorts specifically. And then other people really like it when dudes wear shorts, but like people shit on each other really intensely for specific fashion choices. And where does that come from? Is there like a social posturing going on there?
I think if you think about how clothing can be a communication, of how we want to present ourselves, it's related to like the status that we want to be showing. So like, in your personal way, you might be saying like, well, because I'm telling you that looks really bad, that means I'm an authority and you suck, I don't, I'm dressed better, so I'm higher up in society. That's, I mean, the short and sweet of it.
But those rules change. Like the values that dictate what's there changes, and it seems like getting worked up about it does not take that into account.
It's just purely visceral. Like, it's not anything that matters. Like, I have, everybody has those things, like, that's interesting. Sorry, but the cargo shorts and the shorts, I have zero opinions about men's shorts. And is that because I don't wear men's shorts? Or is this like a men to men thing? Or I'm just getting sidetracked by the shorts.
I have a certain friend who like made her boyfriend go out and buy new shorts because he only had cargo shorts.
Oh, okay.
A friend who will not be named.
Yeah.
Who cares? I mean, I personally... They kind of, when you wash them a couple times, the pocket part used to like curl up and like not look good anymore.
That's true.
Which is why I abandoned cargo shorts. It's like you couldn't keep them for more than a summer, or else they would get all kind of ratty.
Yeah, because you care about that's your presentation. You don't want to look crappy.
Yeah, exactly. Or have to iron cargo pockets because like that's not necessary.
Yeah,
I don't use them.
No.
I'm not putting my my Game Boy Pocket and loading up with Pokemon to head off to the playground like I used to.
Oh.
I have put stuff in cargo pockets and it's so uncomfortable.
Bangs
heavy.
Against your knee.
It's heavy. And you need a belt.
Yeah.
I want to go back to your point, Ryan, about like people ripping on each other on Twitter.
Okay.
Because it's interesting. I feel like that's sort of like the same bullying dynamic that happens to kids in schools and, just among peers in social situations. But it's interesting because it seems that on Twitter, the medium doesn't allow for the like win that most bullying situations do in the real world.
Okay.
And for some reason, I feel like bullying for clothes on Twitter is a zero-sum game because no one walks away feeling superior in the sense that like there's no real validation because there's always going to be people on both sides of the coin that are available to chime into it.
Yep.
And it's just kind of unnecessary negativity when I think about it that way. Like there's no real right answer to something so subjective as fashion that it's almost not worth your time to retweet or reply to messages that are like, these dudes shouldn't be wearing shorts. Check out top 15 reasons why camo cargo shorts are ruining our democracy. Like, who cares?
It's just because they want another pair of shorts to be the trend for the season. That's all. All fashion trends are just dictated by, it trickles down from high-end fashion houses to bridge clothing companies to like fast fashion companies, and they are just generating content to reinforce the trends because that's the clothing that they decided to produce for the season, so it's just trends are, and to comment on what you were saying, Will, about how it's very subjective to be like, don't wear shorts or, whatever it might be. It's kind of like, it doesn't matter that I'm fully aware that like my internal, like, I don't like when people wear clothing like this. It's more of like, that's how I would choose not to wear something. And it's kind of like an internal calibration for yourself and your own style. But you're right, when you're putting it out there and saying like, don't dress this way, or, this trend is better than another, or whatever else, it is useless, but it makes, I think it makes some people think that they are higher up, even though they're really not. Like, you're the same spot. There's no net gain there at all, but...
So clothing is communication, right? And then communication about clothing is like the sort of next sphere out.
Trend is temporary. Style is permanent. Well, not permanent, but it's more of what you're putting out every day.
Well, this leads pretty well into a next topic of dressing up. Like formal wear, business wear. Because when you're choosing how to dress on the weekend or whatever... or when nobody's going to see you even, it's very different than when you're going to go to work or you're going to go to an event. And like there's, suits and dresses as formal wear. And like in what occasion do you really wear a suit or a dress formally? When was the last time we all did that?
January, end of January for me. I had a wedding, so. And that's when I had to learn the definition of formal dress.
Was it like a super, super formal wedding?
Yeah, it was very formal. Like, well, super formal is like guys have to wear like coattail suit tuxes or whatever.
Yeah, like white tie versus black tie.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah,
I don't know. Wait, what is the difference between white tie? White tie is like more casual, right? Or black tie?
Yeah, we did some research. The difference between white tie and black tie is kind of like the traditional formal that we think of in the 21st century. It's the like tuxedo, the like evening dress kind of thing. For white tie, it's the way that I would summarize it for the listeners is like, imagine the Planters peanut guy and just erase him, and that's white tie. So it's like coattails, like an optional cane, sometimes a formal hat, and a white bow tie.
That's very specific.
So they say that kind of stuff has been kind of on the decline. It was even in the 20th century, very few white tie events. The black tie formal kind of took over.
Yeah, and we did a little bit of research into sort of the history of suits and dresses, and basically the overall trend over time has been to make them less like adorned and more comfortable. So like from the 17th century crazy shit on, it's just gotten more and more comfort based, and like suits and like sort of modern dresses, not like hoop skirts, but like modern dresses all came out of this slow move toward wearing more and more comfortable clothing.
And it kind of, if I recall from you doing your research, and I didn't dive down this article, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that like from the time of the plague, the colors have become more muted as well.
Yeah, the colors dropped out.
And it was almost like a reaction from the aristocracy to kind of, it's kind of like wearing Easter clothes to a funeral.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to communicate the like brightness and levity of a situation. And it's like all these people were dying in the streets. So the aristocracy was like, maybe we should like tone down the brightness. Kind of calls attention to the fact that we live in places where we might not get bootleg.
So like the main formal trend is moving toward increasingly mourning wear, like
With
mourning a death. Yeah. Does that mean that goth is the end game?
No.
Monochrome. Black.
I'm showing up to my next wedding in like all black, like Matrix style, in a trench coat. And
Don't forget
boots.
the black tie clip.
Yeah, the black tie clip on my black tie.
But what's interesting is like the dressing up and how you're saying basically it's gone from very ornate to focusing more and more on streamlined, veering towards the more casual and comfort. I mean, think about how many people were accessing that level, that type of clothing when people were wearing those like insane corsets and hoop skirts. Like not as many. You had to be of a certain economic status.
Yeah.
But now, luxury style is more accessible. The more uncomfortable ones, they still exist. They're probably just categorized as like haute couture, like those really ornate, insane ones. Like when I think of people really getting dressed up, like I think of like the Met Ball, because that's supposed to be like the end all be all of high art and that high art for dressing, I mean. So yeah, but like the amount of time that goes into it is insane with those types of dresses. So like, I mean, there's no way we would have been able to keep up with that, like going into modern times at all.
It's fucking elaborate.
Yeah, to speak back to, the old-fashioned, crazy, large dresses, it just calls to mind those oil paintings of the wealthy getting dressed, and they have like 5 handmaids to help them put on their corset and, get into the dress and all of those things. It takes like 10 people to get you ready. So, of course, those other 9 people are not putting that same outfit on.
Well, this is kind of a little bit of a leap from that, but like, since we're on the topic of, kind of breaking other people's backs for clothing and like what we're presenting and everything like that. I mean, if you think of the production of clothing has gone up like a lot, just from the 70s into like the early 2000s. I think I was reading something and I think it went up from like 27 tons to like, was it 70 or 80 million tons of clothing produced in the world? So
holy shit.
Or it was cotton used for the clothing. But in any case, that demonstrates like the increased usage, and that's just within, a 30-year span. And
I think it would be remiss to ignore the idea of like, where do our clothes come from as well?
Yeah, it's like...
because like they're clearly coming from places where wages are not as good as they are here.
And conditions.
Can get our pair of shoes to us for under $30 in the DSW warehouse, and it's kind of very easy, especially in our like click and go Amazon culture, to forget that those are like made by humans with their hands, put on shipping containers,
right,
which pollute our environment and cause climate change, which we are opposed to.
It's a giant fucking mess.
Yeah, it's like
yes, clothing does a lot of bad things. It's not good.
Economies. Yeah.
So is the answer to not wear clothes?
It's to think about where we're getting our clothes from. The answer is not nudist colony.
Are you gonna?
But
are you gonna move that idea, Ryan?
I don't know. I think the Walnut Desk podcast could do a Walnut Desk on wheels at a nudist colony.
Okay. Just try it on.
Try it off.
Try it off.
Yeah, so we start, like, Wendy, you started to touch on, like, sort of the fashion industry, the way that high fashion trickles down and sort of dictates what ends up in our target clothes selection, almost like directly like it's a chain. And like that chain is not just dictated by trying to wear what is like art as clothing, but it's also an industry around that's trying to reposition new art as clothing every season or every year to keep the industry going, because it's based on the same sort of capitalist impulse of economic growth as every other industry.
Yeah, there's a scene from The Devil Wears Prada. Have you guys ever seen that movie?
We should have watched that before this, but we didn't.
Probably.
So there's a scene, and I don't have this memorized, but where Meryl Streep's character, who is the fashion magazine editor at, is it Vogue? I don't know. It's not Vogue, but it's called something, very poshy. And Anne Hathaway's character, who just had started her job there, and talking about how she's presenting herself and her style and what she cares about. For her, showing up to work and being professional was kind of like in a sweater over a button-down shirt and kind of like a skirt that wasn't very form-fitting, just like that was her idea. And there was a meeting within the Meryl Streep's character's office where they were going over what they would be featuring in a new photo shoot. And they were looking at this like rack of clothing, and they were trying to distinguish between these two similar shades of blue and what they should decide to go with. And Anne Hathaway's character is like, well, they kind of look the same, kind of under her breath. And then, Meryl Streep's character just like stops and she's like, excuse me, do you know? And then goes on this whole monologue about how like, so that cerulean that you're wearing in your sweater was actually decided 3 seasons ago. And it kind of is just, it's very, an informal way of looking at how the fashion media, which works in conjunction with the fashion industry, the people that produce the clothing and design it and whatever else, are perpetuating their own, like, I guess, visual ideology, so we can keep that capitalist agenda going of like, well, you must buy this. Yeah. This is what is in right now. This is the cerulean blue is obviously better than azure or, whatever. And, making all those distinctions.
What I'm thinking of now is like, if we think of fashion as art, you also think of like, when I think of art, I think of like an art show, like where you would put off, this is what is being presented right now. This is the latest exhibit by this artist. Here's their painting, here are their photos. And that's kind of also the fashion magazine, right? Like that's their place to show off the new trends. But also there's the runway shows. Yeah. As well, where they do the big clothing release line.
Where you seem like really extreme, crazy looking shit that people could never wear in real life.
And I wonder about that, right? Because that is really art and fashion combining. Like no one would ever wear that.
But you see like, okay, you like
trash
see something with like somebody goes down a
outfit.
runway with like a dress that has a giant triangle like coming off their shoulder or something. But then like the next year and a half later, you see like that kind of triangle like sewn into the corner of like that shoulder of like a fashion t-shirt or something. You know what I mean? Okay. Like it kind of gets dulled.
It trickles down.
It's like it's similar to I don't know why it made me think of this, but I was like, it's similar to we can only see the light from stars based on like how far away they are. We can only see it years and years after the light was there. We only see the fashion in our day-to-day lives. It's like long after like the invention of that specific trend, right?
Well, when you're thinking of like luxury, so when you see those types of dresses or those outfits on the runway during those fashion shows or whatever you see in spreads and magazines, those things that you're thinking, well, that looks kind of crazy, like that's not the normal, that's something that is unattainable for me, whether that be by just purely would I be able to afford that, because those pieces are very expensive because of the amount of work that goes into it and because of the name inflation behind the designer, of course. But but what I think, when I think about fashion and that whole world and how that the high end then kind of trickles all the way down to fast fashion, it's kind of like it's by creating something that's unattainable, there's always going to be a desire. And the mass of people aren't going to be wearing those dresses. So the fashion industry answers to that by having fast fashion kind of be, what comes down from the higher end fashion. So people feel like they still are part of something, but they're not really. They're not quite there. So keep hoping, like keep pushing through.
Right.
So.
Or does it just solidify their place? It's like when I shop at TJ Maxx or whatever, I know, like, okay, so for one, you can't avoid trend because it comes down, and whether you think about the way you dress or not, someone else is dictating the way you dress. So similar to like the idea that you should choose to believe in something, otherwise something else is going to like take control. You should choose to dress some way because otherwise it's just dictated to you. Like we're given X amount of options, we go to the store, we buy them, and we reduce those options, but the initial pool is dictated by this other sort of class-oriented thing.
It kind of confirms both ends for you, where it's just like, you're part of it, but you're also kind of actively deciding not to be part of it at the same time when you're shopping and making that kind of thought process. Yeah, it's hard. You can't avoid the trends that are created by, you just have to shop what is available because I don't make my own clothes. So, and that's
I don't either.
Yeah, and that's a huge disconnect. When I think about like when we buy our food, like if I really wanted to, I could grow my own food. Like I could do that. I cannot realistically make my own clothes unless I just started to wear like hand knit everything, which is possible, but I'm not going to. I don't want to do that.
And that wool is really good this time of year.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, it would be really difficult. We would have to gain all these skills that we really don't have, and probably use tools and machinery that we don't have access to.
And I actually, thinking about style and options, and like you said like the TJ Maxx problem, right? I'll like call it that for just ease of reference, but it's like you walk into a store and immediately you've limited your options for your style. So it's kind of like going around and spreading that around, and that was the part of shopping that I always hated was. If I wanted to really authentically express my style, I would have to go to like 8 different stores and only get like 1 or 2 things from each store. And I hate the process of spending my whole day being a consumer. It really bothers me.
Yeah.
So what I did, and I thought my problem was solved, I was like, not only can I can double dip here, not only can I get someone to pick clothes that are in my style for me, but I don't have to go to all the stores. I signed up for one of these delivery, like once a month box.
The box services.
And the only reason I signed up was because it was like half off. It was like $40 for like, a pair of shoes, some pants, a shirt. I was like, okay, this is actually a really good deal. So I signed up for it. And the first box that I got, I thought was okay. And I was like, this is okay. I'm going to wear the shirt. The pants are not my style. I ended up actually trying the pants out just to see if I could like rock them or if they like looked all right.
Were they those pants that have like the scrunchie at the bottom of
were.
The leg? Those are so weird.
They were those jogger pants. And I found that with the right pair of shoes, they were fine.
Okay.
But like I was like, I'm never going to wear these to work, which is what I do the majority of the time. And I like don't necessarily have the confidence to wear them on a date. So it's like I kind of just have these pants that are like a one-time use kind of thing.
Totally.
But yeah, so what's interesting is I forgot to cancel it. They really hide their cancel button.
Okay.
And I like try to cancel it and I'm like, I'll just cancel it next month when the credit card bill comes back. And by that time they've already shipped out the other one. So I'm on my third one. I think it's sitting in my mailbox right now, and I need to go and cancel that right now. But the last 2 boxes that I've been getting are drifting farther and farther away from.
Oh, they're not getting better.
They're not getting better. Even though I'm going and voting on the stuff. And what I've realized is they front load it, give you some good stuff the first time.
Yeah.
The next couple weeks they give you I would just say lesser quality items. The stuff feels like it's getting thinner. It feels like it's not fitting me the way.
The material's probably worse.
The material, So they definitely tier that stuff, it seems to me.
Yeah.
And it just kind of is diminishing returns. And also, I feel less true to myself. I don't really wear those clothes as often as the other ones that I have because I didn't pick them.
You didn't pick it.
You lose that sense of control over your style. And I think that now in talking about it and processing it is very important to me, more so than I had ever thought.
Yeah. Especially the, I don't want to be a consumer impulse when I have to be. It's very frustrating, which my reaction to that is fuck this. I'm not even going to think of clothing as self-expression. This is just me in, whatever wear exists, and I'm going to be me and totally avoid the idea that my clothes have anything to do with that identity thing. But that's not a good solution either.
I mean, it's not really because it doesn't, other people are still looking at you, so. You can avoid that, I guess. You could stay home all day, but,
Well, I do. So do we want to talk a little bit really quick about high fashion? Can you give us a rundown of some major high fashion? Because I see in the notes that we have some links to some crazy shit, it looks like, and I want to hear about it.
I've looked at a bunch of it, and I'm very interested to hear your take on some of these things, because there's one of the things in our notes, a link right now is to something called trashing, and I really need to know about that first.
Well, I always knew about that. I just, I didn't know the formal name of it. I was just kind of putzing around on the Google, and trashing came up, and it's supposed to be, kind of another way of looking at wearable art for clothing. Only you're only using recycled materials.
So this is not the derelict campaign.
No, that is not like that. No, which is what I thought of when I saw trashing, and then I was like, oh yes, this is the thing that makes more sense.
Yes,
but And I think it's a really interesting idea. It's more about the symbolism behind reusing things to put on what we wear every day versus, constantly, using new materials and being wasteful. So that's and in order to make those repurposed materials acceptable, it's kind of done in a more artistic way. That's kind of how I think about that, and when you're looking at different images that kind of relate to trashin and what falls under the trashin category. And it's just, that's the idea of like wearable art, and I think that kind of sets itself up and lines up with like haute couture and kind of like what we're seeing at big Met exhibits. Like that's my best example. Those links I gave you guys for I don't know if I'm saying this right because I'm not an authority on fashion, but Rei Kawakubo from Comme des Garçons, which is a very popular, it's high-end clothing, that brand, but it's definitely more accessible in terms of like their price ranges that they have. And the China Through the Looking Glass, which was specifically about looking at how Western style influenced Chinese culture and Chinese dress and everything like that. So, cool. But I think definitely, like, clothing and art, they can collide, those two things, and that's really the only function of high fashion, besides it being something that's, like, unattainable. It's supposed to be a form of art, and that's one of the things I like. I like that part of it, but I also hate that part of it because I know that's, like, it's just it's all show for the most part. There isn't a lot of, for a lot of designers, I think, the same way where I think of like traditional artists and other mediums kind of have that same type of passion. Sometimes it's more about, I would say, producing a new summer line, but I could be wrong.
Right. Fashion has like a unique problem because many art forms, like, film or fiction writing, poetry writing, like anything visual, it doesn't usually have such a close tie to something that humans need to consume. So like, there's an industry around every art, but fashion has like a uniquely necessitated industry. So it's like, it's a unique problem because I do have a love-hate relationship with that idea. Like, I hate the capitalistic impulse of it telling us what to wear and sort of the dictation of like high class down to lower class choices in attire. But I mean, like, I guess ultimately you have to choose what to wear, and that should be like a positive experience. So you have to grapple with the two. And then also the idea of like wearing art, like we're talking about now, which I guess I have positive feelings about.
Yeah, ultimately it's almost the only art form that I feel like could rival clothing in its necessity to humans would be cuisine.
Right.
Like cooking and like high, cuisine.
Totally.
Like restaurant stuff.
And it has the same problem. Yeah.
Which is super interesting segue because you know what other kinds of dressing there are.
What?
You guys.
What other kinds of dressing are there?
I don't know.
There is salad dressing.
There's salad dressing. You're right. We've been totally overlooking salad dressing.
Which is typically it's a blend of oil, vinegar, and herbs. You put it on your salad. It's delicious.
I love salad dressing. Let's just each say our favorite salad dressing flavor right now.
Ooh.
There's a correct answer, Wendy.
Wendy, you can go first. Number 1.
It's the Annie's Goddess dressing. Love that dressing.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
That's pretty damn good.
I've never tried that.
What
like flavors are in it?
I don't know. I don't read the bottle anymore. I just put it on my salad.
Okay. What's it
Annie's
called again?
Goddess.
The Goddess
Yeah,
dressing.
let me look it up.
It's like
I actually haven't bought it.
It's like a light, oily Italian kind of dressing, right? It tastes a little bit like an Italian dressing to me.
Yeah, it's tahini based.
Huh. That sounds really good. I'm a huge proponent of the blue cheese.
Blue cheese.
It's the best. It's so versatile. You can dip your pizza, dip your wings, smother your salad. You get a nice little chunk of cheese in there sometimes.
Yep. I also would go with the blue cheese. Unfortunately, I feel like it comes from wanting to dip pizza in salad. I actually don't put it on salads that much, but it's my favorite dressing. On salads, I actually prefer just kind of like oil and balsamic vinegar. I'm not or nothing. I just kind of eat the green shit.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. I've watched you eat entire spinach salads with no dressing on it, and it drives me insane.
Just a massive plate of spinach or a massive plate of kale and just like mow right through it like a farm animal.
Yeah. I need like something to coat it. It gets like stuck in my throat. Drink 4 cups of water to try to get the kale down.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, so one dressing I really don't like is ranch dressing.
And everybody in California gives it to you with your wings, like you want to dip your wings in ranch dressing.
As if it were blue cheese.
What? That's ridiculous.
Ranch dressing is super popular here. It's a goddamn nightmare.
Why?
In New York, the default is blue cheese, right?
I think so.
If you ordered wings.
Yeah, they give
Hot
you blue
wings.
cheese. Blue cheese is like the standard, like if you don't...
Little celery.
That's what I thought it was everywhere.
Yep.
You know?
Nope.
Not in California. These weirdos, they love their ranch, which is just... So I did some research on ranch because it's so popular, and there's just like article after article after article talking about the history of ranch.
Really?
So it seems as though ranch, based on the amount of articles that I saw, if you were to poll the United States, it seems as though people would prefer ranch to blue cheese. I think we're in the minority here.
Okay.
But
They're wrong.
ranch was literally created for the consumer from the original recipe on the Hidden Valley. Like the guy who made the mainstream ranch recipe, Hidden Valley Ranch is like the original
It's the number
thing.
one
It's
first
named
ranch.
dressing because it came up on that ranch.
Okay.
So like that's the one. It's the ranch. There's also, and I really want to go shake this person's hand, because there is a pizza place in Texas that will not sell you a side of ranch to dip your pizza in for less than $1,000. I read that and I was just grinning ear to ear. I was like, this person gets it.
But you know that there's at least one person that was like, I am not eating there because they are taking such a strong stance on ranch dressing.
Right, but then there are people who will travel to go to that place just because they fucking don't like they agree with the anti-ranch.
They like the grump, whoever that is.
Okay, so one thing I will say is like pizza, sauces on pizza, dressing on pizza is something that happens. People at pizza places like to take out the the pizza sauce and replace pizza sauce with a dressing or something. Like ranch is one of them that I've seen. Barbecue sauce is one of them that I've seen, and I feel like that's blasphemous in some way. Like that seems so wrong. You add the dressing on top of the pizza. Yeah,
It's got to be extra.
Yeah.
I think it's like kind of like beer. It's not technically beer unless it's yeast, hops, and barley.
Yep.
I think pizza needs dough, tomato, cheese, and then you can express after that.
Totally.
But like those buffalo pizzas where they put buffalo sauce instead of...
Oh, it's terrible.
You need some of the tomato sauce in there
It
to
ends up being
remind you
too
that you're
spicy.
eating a pizza and not a breadstick.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I go after the buffalo chicken pizza for the spicy and sweet sort of combination, and there's just too much spicy.
I'm looking at the rest of the menu for the ranch restaurant, and I'm about to take a trip.
Okay.
It looks really good. Not that I like dipping everything in ranch, but like I don't dislike ranch dressing. I think it's pretty cool that they've got Cool Ranch croquettes. They've got loaded tater tots covered in some sort of really thick ranch, like cheese sauce.
Yep, buffalo chicken dip.
Oh man, all their salads are ranchy salads. Even their Caesar salad has a Caesar ranch. It's a modified buttermilk recipe. So this place is pretty cool. It's called Twisted Ranch.
And I feel like we're maybe ignoring other kinds of dressing. And I don't want to take up too much time here, but we have to talk a little bit about dressing wounds. Like an emergency wound dressing, and I want to know if either of you have been in a situation where you have had a major wound that needed on-site dressing, or have dressed someone else's wound.
No, I haven't had any. I've cut myself pretty bad before, but that's not a wound dressing. That's just, using some that wrap gauze stuff. Yeah.
So
I've dressed-
that totally counts.
That's the dressing.
You've dressed your own
okay.
wounds.
Well, it wasn't that intense, but I feel like wound
the next
dressing is
line.
like means you got seriously injured.
I think it's any wound that you like wrap gauze around. That's dressing a wound.
We have a new industry now. I just invented this industry, and I hope that you two will join me in a future pursuit to corner this industry and make millions of dollars. So wound dressing fashion. So not just SpongeBob like Band-Aids, but like gauze that's like fancy gauze.
Plaid gauze.
Formal gauze. Like white tie gauze.
Goth gauze.
Goth gauze. You heard it here first. I have definitely dressed wounds. I used to be a first aid instructor, so I had to learn all of the Red Cross processes and procedures for, you want to tie down the gauze on top of the wound.
Yep.
So let's say you're going to wrap an arm, you want to put the knot on top of it to apply pressure while you're not applying pressure. If bleeding won't stop, you're supposed to elevate the body part above the heart to slow the flow of blood with the help of gravity. Light tourniquets, things like that, cleaning it up. If you decide you want to research this stuff, don't look up avulsions.
Never look at avulsions.
I had to deal with a slight avulsion.
Really?
A girl fell at a summer camp and landed really weirdly. So if you feel your knee on the outside, inside of your knee, there's a little soft spot in between where your bone of your thigh meets with your leg bone, and there's a little soft spot right there.
Yeah.
And she fell.
Oh no!
On a stick.
No! I'm gonna pass out.
It just dug a huge chunk out of right where the soft spot of her knee was. So we had to dress that wound.
So an avulsion is
and then
when
carry her back to like a quarter mile to where a van could access a pickup to get her to the hospital. That's my wound dressing story.
Yeah.
So an avulsion's like a chunk of meat taken out of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's ranging. It ranges in extremeness.
Okay.
And if you Google it, you don't see the tame ones.
Yeah.
No, of course not.
I Googled it.
You see the worst, most clicked avulsions.
Oh.
So, not safe for life, avulsion Google search.
Wendy,
Of course somebody tells me not to do something, I'm going to do it. Don't look it up while you're recording a podcast. That's not nice.
But seriously, Ryan got queasy. Don't look it up if you're...
I'm very sensitive to that shit, unfortunately. I have no control of that. I had this was really minor, but I had, like the kitchen knife cut yourself open experience.
Ooh.
So this was a few years ago. I was in an apartment in Western Massachusetts. I had cut an avocado in half, and you got the center, like the seed avocado.
You have to ninja that thing.
And
you got to slice it.
The goal is to hit it with a sharp knife as hard as you can, so that the knife digs into it and you just pull it out.
Yeah, just twist.
But what happened was I was holding it and I hit it as hard as I could with the sharpest knife in the house, and the seed spun. And my knife went directly through the entire avocado center and outer thing, and then cut this giant gash out of my finger. And we had no Band-Aids in the house. There was nothing. Like, I dropped it. I felt like I was going to pass out for sure. It was bleeding, way more than I thought it would bleed. I tried to, my first instinct was to put it in my mouth. But that was, not going to last for very long. So I grabbed a paper towel and held my finger and walked down to the pharmacy, 3 blocks away, and holding this finger that was literally, the paper towel was, soaked in blood by the time I was there. And I was like, do you have Band-Aids? And so they sold me a little, personal first aid kit, and I dressed my wound right there on the counter, bleeding on the counter in the pharmacy. Yeah.
So not an official, first aid prescription, right? I would never tell anyone to do this, but do you know why your instinct was to put your wound in your mouth?
To, get rid of infection, maybe?
There's actually a property in saliva that promotes, the coagulation of blood and, scab formation. So there actually are enzymes in saliva that will help with that. So licking of wounds really is, it's not the most effective thing to do in modern medicine, but,
right.
there are properties to
but if you're in the middle of nowhere, right? If you're Survivor Man, and
it would help.
You get a gash on your arm.
I would look for something else first.
Just put it in your mouth.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I always use a spoon to take out the pit of an avocado, and I'm definitely gonna keep doing that now. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. I think
Scoop underneath and out.
I'm gonna switch to that method. That method never occurred to me.
Oh,
I don't know.
You eat one half of the avocado first, and then you dig out the pit, and then you put the pit in the half you just ate, and it's like a little little holder.
The pit.
You just eat the avocado?
Mm-hmm. That's how I usually eat my avocado.
Yeah.
I just usually just straight eat them. I don't usually put them in salads. I just like avocados on their own.
The best way to eat an avocado, in my opinion, is to take it apart like in halves, and then there's the little like divot where the pit was, and you just pour salsa into the divot.
Whoa!
And you spoon eat it.
Game changer.
Yeah. Do you put salt
It's
on
really
your
good.
avocado? Like you just sprinkle?
I try to avoid it.
It makes it taste
You guys
so
and your
good.
avocados. Mine always go bad.
It does taste
if I
so
don't
good.
make guacamole, they just go bad.
Oh.
They go bad. No, I love the avocados.
Huh.
I'm just not. I don't think I
God,
need to get
we're
into
like-
avocado routine. I
Yeah.
guess. Why don't? I mean, avocados are fruits. Why don't we peel the avocado and eat them like apples?
It's too hard.
I don't know.
It
because
seems
it's-
like the easy
because
way
it's
to
gooey.
deal.
It'll stick to your
Yeah.
hands. If it's a little bit soft, it kind of starts to fall apart. I don't know.
That's true. But what if you peeled them while they were like a little bit less ripe? I guess they don't taste
Then they
as
would
good.
taste terrible.
You guys could do that
Yeah,
for another
I think-
episode. Try alternative ways to eat avocado while the trend is still hot.
So
Well-
dressing,
Yeah.
we do it to ourselves.
We
We
do
do
it-
it to our salads.
We don't do it to each other very often. Have any of you been dressed since as being adult? Have you like let someone else choose your
Yes.
clothes for you?
Yeah.
Really? Like a whole outfit? You were like, all right, you're gonna choose what I'm
Yeah.
wearing
One of my
today.
good friends, Violet, would do that to me when she lived with me. And pretty sure Maggie
Cool.
did that a couple times. I might not have asked, though.
It was forced
Yes.
dressing,
I quote...
just like
Yeah,
ranch.
I quote unquote a couple of times she said I look like I got dressed in the dark. So, yeah.
Ryan, I don't think you've considered this, but you actually dressed me about a year ago because
What?
I was in your wedding.
Oh,
you
that's
told
true.
me exactly
Yeah.
what I had to wear that day.
I did. I dressed a lot of people for that wedding.
Yeah.
That was a lot of control that I didn't address at the time.
So Ryan is a dresser.
I'm a dresser. Dresser. I hardly know her.
And on that note, Wendy, thank you so much for coming
Wait.
on the podcast.
We have to decide yes or no.
Oh.
We can't end yet.
I just wanted to end on the dresser. I hardly know her. I mean, that just was perfect, Ryan.
So I feel like there's a basic problem that we need to each reconcile for ourselves when we answer yes or no to dressing. Because obviously we all have to do it, so there's like a substantive like baseline yes, right? But in the clash between sort of the capitalist problem that we are all uncomfortable with and the desire to project a self that is a part of a specific cultural community, that kind of thing, or even self-expression, which I think is the same thing. It's just you're projecting a lot. But like, which thing wins out for you in the end on a day-to-day basis? I think that's where the yes or no is.
I'm conflicted because it's kind of like, on the one hand, I don't want everyone to be in a uniform.
Right.
On the other hand, I think that I would be more productive in other spaces if like all of the energy that's like automatically going towards getting dressed because society says that it's required could be put somewhere else. Like that would be cool. I would just wonder what it's like to have all this extra headspace. So I'm kind of in the middle. I'm gonna need to think about it while you guys talk.
All right. Wendy?
Well, to quote Mark Twain, naked people have little or no influence in society. So that's the baseline.
That's
That is the
true.
baseline, yes. But when I think about, what I'm deciding to wear every day, some days more than others, I definitely think about more of what I'm expressing and what I want to convey. Like your viewers won't be able to see it, but I'm wearing a shirt by an artist, Julia. I'm not sure if I'm saying her last name right, but she's my sister's good friend, Elamani, and it says, "Don't touch me." She's an artist, and, I'm expressing literally "don't touch me." It's very apt for living in a city as a woman. But it's also, like, something that I visually like. I like her style of art, so it, kind of combines the wearable art thing and everything. So even when it's a simple shirt, you can still be expressing something. So that's kind of my yes to that. And then to also quote somebody that is not Mark Twain, when you don't dress like everyone else, you don't have to think like everyone else. Iris Apfel, who said that, she's this famous octogenarian. Everybody should look her up because she's amazing, and she's really interesting looking, and all of her accessories and garb. But yeah,
Cool.
it's a yes, because you gotta put on the clothes, so you might as well do it in a way that expresses what you feel.
Yeah, I think you might have convinced me a little bit because I was kind of on the fence. And if yes means that like you take control and you demand agency over the thing that we are like ensnared in, yeah, I'm up for it. I'm down. I will say a yes.
And after hearing the two of you, you guys have convinced me as well, because I think right now the dichotomy between me getting a package with clothes that someone else is dressing me in, and me going out and choosing to do it on my own, I definitely am choosing to dress myself from now on. Like, I'm gonna go cancel that thing right now, knowing that like there's some crap sitting.
We're going to TJ Maxx's.
My mailbox that I can't return.
You guys are never gonna get a sponsorship from a stylist.
So I'm gonna give the thumbs up.
Never.
Continuing the trend of alienating sponsors.
Every episode we alienate at least one sponsor every episode, or like an entire industry of sponsors. But well, thank you, Wendy, so much for coming on.
Yeah.
And doing the podcast. Listeners, give us those 5-star ratings on iTunes and subscribe there if that's not already how you're consuming the podcast. What else, Will? Yeah,
just please weigh in on the social media channels. We're on Twitter at Walnut Desk Pod. You can search for our YouTube channel, Walnut Desk Podcast. And do you agree with our official stance? Thumbs up, thumbs down, dressing, clothes, salad, turkey stuffing, whatever. Tell us how you feel about dressing. So again, thanks to Wendy Ratner for coming on the podcast. I'm Will.
And I'm Ryan.
Have a good one.